I think this might be the slowest week we've ever had in War of the Visions, and honestly, I'm kind of fine with it. There's no raid to worry about. There's just the low and grim farming, which I already have a +5 of, and then some book farming, and maybe I'll make a plat bow, I don't know. So we've got a free MR coming out, which is Creysse here, and then we've also got the Marilith banner for an MR vision card. So, I mean, do you really need me to say whether or not you should pull for an MR vision card? I guess I'll make a video. Thank you as always to warofthevisioncalc.com for all the information in this video. And then before we go on to the video, I need to shout out a new patron, that's ArtofAshe, who actually does a lot of War of the Visions fan art, and it's really good. So definitely go check out their stuff, and I'll put some links and info to get to that in the description below. Okay, so Creysse is a free MR. We're gonna get her, we're gonna get all of her shards without spending any Visor, and they'll give you lots of awakening resources as well. So there's no reason to not build her unless you want to save the MR or / the Rainbow Rock equivalent things. And if you have a lot of those, like me, I have like 50 rainbow fragments right now, it's ridiculous. Then, I mean, why not build her if you really want to try out a sniper? But otherwise, she can just sit until you're ready to build her if you ever need her. So let's kind of talk about that. So she is a water unit. She's got the gunner main job, Viking sub job, and then sniper sub job, and she's cost 50. Looking at her stats, her HP is really high for an MR, and there's a reason for that. Her attack unfortunately is low. Crit rate being higher is kind of good for gunners. It's something that you see. Same thing with a higher dexterity, and then her luck is below average. Her agility isn't bad. It's not good either though. So I mean, this is pretty much what you'd expect from an MR gunner. We'll compare her to the other MR gunners after as well. And then her master ability, she gets that increased HP and the increased water attack for water allies, and that actually applies for herself. So that's kind of good that she gets that water attack, and then she gets 20% increased AP from her master ability. She gets 15% increased AP or HP, sorry, from her from her board ability. So all of a sudden, you've got let's see there, 45% increased HP from her base HP. That's why it's at 2,102. Like, really random. Doesn't matter that she has high HP. She does get the increased area resistance 10, which again is like, why does she have defensive stats when she's not going to be able to take a hit? I don't know. Okay, so if we take a look at her resistances, they're typical, and then her status element resistances are kind of weird. Like, none of these are really that relevant. Maybe for PvE, which is where you'd use her, so whatever. You can think next time there's a PvE content that uses a lot of blind or don't immobilize, then you know, oh well, I have Creysse that I can just bring into for this map or something. Her damage type resistances aren't very good. I mean, slash and magic are two of the worst to have. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that she has HP or that she has the area resistance. I don't really think she's made to take a hit, and that's fine because she's a gunner slash a sniper, so she shouldn't be too close to anybody, hopefully. And then her TMR is actually kind of interesting, and again, this is a good TMR because this will, you know, be so easy to acquire. We're gonna have all the shards, you just have to unlock it. So when we look at these MR units that are free, yeah, they're not gonna break your account and make you super powerful, but they're actually gonna be quite excellent for new players. So we do need to take that lens and then look at it that way. This gun is kind of interesting. It's got accuracy, the attack isn't fantastic, but it's not terrible, and then it has decreased chance of being targeted. That's actually kind of cool. I bet there's some applications for that in PvP. I bet there's a time where you might want to try that. So this is a really good entry. Like, gunners are very useful units for a new player to get a gunner, to get a TMR gun for their gunner, so they don't have to craft a piece of equipment that's not available right now, the Ras El Gethi. Like, that's kind of neat. So whatever. I mean, I think there is reason for us to use her as experienced players, but it's going to be few and far between. It depends if you have a sniper or not. Okay, so passives, this is kind of interesting in that she gets Missile Mastery, 15 missile attack, and she gets Sniper Mastery, that's 15 missile attack. So we've got 30 missile attack and 10 water attack from her mastery ability. So even though her attack is low, she gets a bunch of modifiers. And then she has some range stuff and some Viking lore and all this, but I really do think that like maybe you'll just go for those 2 missile attacks, and then perhaps you might go for Concentrate depending on if you need the range. And then counters, I don't think any of them really matter because she just really shouldn't be taking a hit. If I had to pick one from these 3, it would probably be Counter Smoke, maybe Counter Shot, I don't know. Okay, gunner main skills, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this is the same kit as Ryu, and it's pretty standard for gunners. Double shot is good for chaining. Arm shot is obviously a very powerful skill that has a very powerful status effect. And if you look at the sub skills, the main thing to see there, well, council is a very cool buff, but leg shot is the most important to think about because it has a range of height 2. So if you don't use the gunner sub job, all of her main gunner skills, the highest range difference is 1 and most of them are 0, so it's actually really hard to hit people on a map with that. Now looking at her sub jobs, we've got Viking, and I don't really see a reason to use this. She doesn't have any slash attack up modifiers, and you don't want her near anybody anyway. I guess the Rebellious Spirit is kind of interesting, the defense is whatever, but the 40% attack is kind of cool. Otherwise, again, I don't really see you using this sub job. It's more for the passives and the stats that it might bring, which it doesn't in this case. But and then sniper, here's the really interesting sub job. So we just had 2 snipers released, now this is the 3rd that we can get. And for those of you that did not get Nivlu or Christmas, or sorry, Winter Venera, well, you might want to build her to have some of this sniper utility. So for example, she's actually going to get 40 defense penetration here, and then the slow shot decrease agility by 20% for 3 turns, and then the barrier break arrow, those are really useful abilities. Those have PvE applications. She might be a really good tower unit because she might be your only unit on your entire roster that can break a barrier. And then with the slow shot, that might be useful for some sort of box event where you need to slow down a boss so that you can get more chains if they're immune to the steal time or whatever it is. So there's actually applications here that might make her useful, and I'm kind of curious. I want to know if, even though her attack is so low, how much damage can she do if she happens to have the target buff on, if she has her aimed fire buff on, and then she has both her missile attack passives set, then that is a pretty ridiculous amount of missile attack plus defense penetration. That could be kind of interesting for sure. Okay, so comparing her to other MRs, we've got Mustadio and then we have Ryu. So there's some interesting things to note here is that, well, first of all, Mustadio and Ryu have more attack than she does, but they don't have nearly as many modifiers. Mustadio gets the all-important Ranger sub-job, which gives you that reflex, gives you that sharpshoot, and then he has a bunch of really cool skills on his main job, but he's limited, so a lot of you might not even have him anyway. I have him at 89. And then Ryu's main thing that he has here, it's not just his attack is at 252, he has 64 agility. It's really high, so that is a pretty big deal, but then otherwise, he just has the same gun kit that Creysse has, but Creysse has snipers. So I think she actually does compare kind of favorably towards these other guys just because of all those modifiers and then also that sniper sub job. Now I'm actually going to compare her not to other gunners but to our other 2 snipers because I see most people using her to access that sniper job. So if we look at Nivlu and then we have our Winter Victoria, you can see obviously they're much stronger than her. Their dex, their luck, their agility, everything except for that HP on Nivlu, it's all better than Creysse, and there's really no reason to use Creysse over these other 2 girls. And they also get more on their kit. They get the slow arrow, the one that actually reduces your opponent's move by 1, and they also get dispel spread to dispel any sort of buffs on your opponent. So they have more utility as snipers. They're going to be like, if you have these 2 units, there's not nearly as much reason to build Creysse unless you really want to do a water party, if you really want to do user in sort of PvE or something like that. Okay, so, oh wow, that went up really fast. So Creysse, is she worth building? Well, barrier break for everybody, that could be important for class match that could be very important for PvE, like tower. And her TMR is kind of interesting. I like the ability that it has, and she can power up your water team if you're really into that. But ultimately, she's weak to Frederica and Nivlu, and I think that's kind of important because I think you're going to run into a lot of them. And her attack is pretty low. She doesn't have that dispel spread or the slow arrow, so I don't know. She's free. There's really like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Do you have the resources to put into her? If you're someone that gets a lot of materials, then you can just, you know, not even give this a second thought and just build her. But if you're someone that is playing, you know, very tight to the vest, the MR and the rainbow materials that you have, then you have to decide if she's going to power up your account now for those other modes, or if she's someone you can just wait on. Okay, we've got Maralith, and she is our banner, which is just a really weird banner. I don't know why you'd pull on this. I think even though it's kind of a cool card for fire units, or sorry, not card, Esper, then it's still, just wait for it, honestly. But we'll still talk about it. So stats, it's geared towards attack. The bestowed is increased slash attack, which is always welcome. It's good bestowed, although it does kind of narrow it down who can use it. And then we have our party ability, increased critical damage. And I don't think we have a comparison for this card. I don't think there is a card that has like near this much of critical damage, so that could be kind of important if you're building a critical party. It's not something I've looked into. I don't think this card is very cool. The possible level 99 buff for fire units only is increased attack 30%, but if you're so into a fire team, then you must have Ifrit maxed, and that's going to be 50% fire attack. I think this card is pretty forgettable, but what is not forgettable is the Esper. So the stats, again, they're geared towards attack, and something I'll point out is that the agility, it's low. It's not really low. It's not like Golem and Two-Headed Dragon low, but it's not that high. And then the evocation spell is kind of cool. I don't know if other evocation spells have more hits, but this one has 3 hits, and that's kind of cool. It's also slashing, so it's a 3 slash chain, 100% hit chance. And it decreases the opponent's slash attack, so I kind of like that. You got to be right up next to them though. Okay, the skill tree, there's some really good things on here. So 25% fire attack, that's so good for any sort of mixed damage type fire unit. So for example, if you give this to Rain, he can use his slash attacks and his magic attacks. If you give this to your Raldor, he can use his paladin attacks and his pugilist attacks, and the list goes on and on. Obviously with Lilith, she could use her projectile attacks and her slash attacks. So this is a really cool for any sort of fire unit, definitely worth considering if you get it. The pierce resistance up is very topical right now. It's really solid, and then a little bit of attack up is always good as well, just to boost up there. I don't think if you're a fire party, like, you really don't care about ice. You're already killing them, you're already not taking damage from them, you don't need those things down there. The rest of this board is pretty unremarkable. If you're someone that has the Visor to spend on just respecking your boards all the time, then hey, look, there's some 15% Dragon Killer for you for PvE, but sorry, that's not me. Okay, so should you pull for Marilith? No, you shouldn't, but there's some pros. The Esper is cool. I like the Esper a lot, and I have a fire team, so I'm definitely into it. I'm not going to pull for it. But then otherwise, the VC isn't great, and the Esper agility is kind of low. So I think if I pull this card, eventually I'm going to build the Esper right up. I'm going to use it for class match to keep my costs down, but then otherwise it's just pretty unremarkable. They want us to, you know, like, they already kind of got us with the Christmas banner. We might get some more surprises. Who knows? We have like kind of a couple weeks to fill here for the 1 year, and there's only 2 weeks of planned content, but 3 weeks to cover. So I think maybe we'll see some other sort of surprise, and this is just the calm before the storm. But otherwise, don't pull her. Build Creysse if you can. Make your own decision. And thank you so much for watching.